Hello, everyone. I'm certified natural healthcare practitioner Erin Thole, and it has been a minute since I did a educational video. So just kind of taking a little hiatus there, but now we are back in action. So today we're talking about genetics, and I'm linking a article below this video that kind of talks about, it's an example basically of what we're talking about today, and how, this excuse of, oh, it runs in my family, oh, it's genetic, is kind of used as an excuse. And a lot of people don't even realize that is an excuse because our society has just fed it to us so much that we just think that that's an acceptable answer. So I work with genetics a lot. I do genetic panels on clients to help us look at the blueprint of the body. Like, your genetic panel is really your blueprint. Like, what are we working with here? We all have mutated genes. There's not one person on this planet that does not have at least a couple handfuls of mutated genes. So what's the difference between somebody who develops, something that's seen as a genetic disorder, like hypothyroidism or celiac disease, digestive issues of all kinds, autoimmune conditions, cancer, irritable bowel, a multitude of things, diabetes. People are like, oh, this runs in my family. Oh, this runs in my family. If we go back a couple generations, it doesn't even have to be many generations, usually like 2-3 tops, we don't have those conditions. A lot of the things that we have these days as diseases and chronic, kind of like almost like a pandemic type situation with like diabetes and autoimmunity and digestive issues and cancers and all these other things. These are lifestyle conditions, and that's been well documented. These are lifestyle conditions, which means that if the lifestyle changes, the conditions change. So your genetics only account for about 10% of your genetic expression, meaning if you have this chain link fence, all the links in the fence represent your different genes. You have strong links, you have weak links. If I aggravate that weak link, it's going to express itself in a negative way. That link is going to break. So if I take out the thing that is aggravating that weak link, then that gene doesn't express itself in a negative way. So things that would aggravate weak links would be excessive stress, poor sleep hygiene, and then diet are huge. Like, those are probably the 3 biggest things. Diet is probably one of the main drivers of pretty much any lifestyle condition. And if we can change the diet, those other things, the sleep, the stress response, start to fall into place, because we're never going to get rid of stress. Like, stress is a constant, it's just part of life. But how your body responds to stress can change. So if we start thinking about stress in a different way, then we become more adaptable, our response changes. The other thing is, with diet and things of that nature, we have so much processed food now, so many chemicals in our food. People's ecosystems are severely just inflamed and out of balance, and everything is just chaos in people's ecosystems. The stool panels that I see in my practice are generally pretty chaotic, which leads to a lot of different health conditions. So when people come to me and they're like, oh, thyroid issues run in my family, oh, autoimmunity runs in my family, oh, my mom has this, my grandma has this, my aunt, my sister, everybody in my family has X, well, then they're all aggravating that weak genetic link, so let's figure out, like, from your perspective, what you're aggravating that link with. They're more than likely aggravating it with something similar or exactly the same. Let's remove that. So looking at food sensitivities, looking at stressors, looking at sleep hygiene, looking at the ecosystem of the gut, and really fine-tuning and creating a lifestyle protocol that really is in alignment with what your body needs to have optimal health and those genes don't express themselves in a negative way. So we can actually reverse a lot of these issues. So in this article that I have posted down below this video, it talks about irritable bowel disorder, irritable bowel disease, previously known as IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which is a blanket terminology. It doesn't really mean much more than your bowel is inflamed, your digestive system is inflamed. Well, that doesn't really tell me much about anything. It's kind of like a duh kind of diagnosis. Okay, my bowel's inflamed. Duh, I knew that based on the symptoms that I'm having. What does that mean? Why is that happening? How did I get here? So that study is looking at particular inflammatory genes and how they're linked to IBS. This is not a new thing. This is not revolutionary. What the article is really talking about is like, oh, there's also these handful of drugs that also already conveniently exist. And we found that they are helpful to suppressing this mutated gene expression. Basically, putting a Band-Aid on it, dampening the immune response, which then, a lot of these drugs that dampen that immune response, they have a high probability of cancer and things like that, because your body's going to revolt in some way when the immune system is being suppressed. It just is, because that's not a natural thing. Like your body, the immune system is what really drives your body to thrive and to live and things like that. It's necessary. So when we're dampening that immune response, the body's not going to be too happy about that. And it kind of leaves the doors wide open for a multitude of health issues to come in. This is why I don't like autoimmune drugs and immune therapy, type things that are suppressants of the immune system. So this article really talks about, there's this handful of drugs that can help to, alleviate symptoms by like basically shushing this gene that is mutated. What if instead we found out why that mutated gene was expressing itself in a negative way instead of just telling it to shut up and putting a Band-Aid on it? Wouldn't that be a better option to actually go to the root of the problem? Look at the blueprint. This is what the body is presenting us with. This is what we know through the study of genetics. All of these genes represent what they do in the body. Well, what aggravates these genes, what increases an inflammatory response, and what causes the immune system to become imbalanced and dysregulated? Inflammatory foods, specifically things like gluten, sugar, chemicals, processed foods, undiagnosed, systemic infections. I see that a lot on stool panels, chemical toxicity, glyphosate toxicity, which is obviously a chemical, but it destroys the lining of the gut, and it really exacerbates these negative immune expressions. There's also a study called Epigenetics, which is the study of manipulating the genes. So we can never change the blueprint. Okay. The genes are what they are. At the second of conception, this is your blueprint. This is the hand you're dealt. You're not going to change it. However, the genes that are mutated, if that flip is switched and they're kind of expressing themselves in a negative way, there are things that we can do to kind of give them a crutch so that they express themselves in a more positive way, and we don't have the symptoms of this negative, mutated gene. So examples of that would be a really common genetic mutation that's talked about a lot these days is MTHFR. Okay, so anything in that methylation window. Okay, methylation is your body's ability to break itself down and rebuild itself in a healthy way in that cellular and DNA, kind of turnover process. So if a person doesn't methylate well, their liver is going to become a little stagnant. It's like there's this traffic jam that happens within that phase 2 detoxification pathway. The liver, the kidneys, like everything just kind of gets gummed up. It doesn't really work the way that it should be. in terms of like DNA turnover and cellular regeneration. So they have this poor detoxification response. It's kind of like a domino effect. These are people that typically have like poor reactions to anesthesia. They lack a lot of enzymes, so digestion might be a little hindered. They are more prone to like cardiovascular events, more prone to vaccine injury, things of that nature. So if we figure out what the body needs, and we also figure out what exacerbates that mutated gene, then we don't have symptoms of that mutated gene. So if, for example, things that would help balance out that gene, an MTHFR gene mutation, would be making sure that you don't take synthetic B vitamins, or you don't drink or eat things that have synthetic B vitamins in them. You're only taking methylated forms of B vitamins, which is basically B vitamins that are already like partially broken down, so they're easier to absorb and utilize within the body. Taking super like stupid high doses of methylated B12, B6, folate is absolutely necessary for proper methylation. Never, ever, ever take folic acid. It is synthetic. It is not a real nutrient. Your body needs folate. Folic acid can exacerbate an MTHFR gene mutation or any of the other genes that fall under that methylation window. So if we utilize those B vitamins in their methylated form, a lot of people see a huge benefit in their energy, their brain function, their body's ability to detox, inflammation response, just a multitude of things, just feeling good in their body. It's a super common genetic mutation. So a lot of people could really benefit from some methylated folate, B12, B6, all these good things. So that's just kind of like an example of a crutch for a gene so that it expresses itself in a better way. There are a lot of others. When I'm going through someone's genetic panel, I'm really kind of highlighting the categories that they have the most mutations in, that we might want to offer their body a little bit of support along. And I'm also looking at the same time, what are they coming to me with? What symptoms, what struggles are they coming to me with? And how does that really correspond to what I'm seeing, not only in their genetic panel, but in their stool panel, in their food sensitivity panel, in their micronutrient panels and things like that? Because oftentimes when we see, as an example, again, with that MTHFR gene mutation, when we look at their micronutrient panel, they're deficient on every single B vitamin. And it's because their body just needs, like I said, stupid high doses of those B vitamins to actually get the job done within the body. So that RDA, that recommended daily allowance, doesn't really mean much of anything, because that recommendation is based on a perfectly balanced human that has no genetic SNPs, no health history issues whatsoever, has never been on an antibiotic, has never, had an injury of any kind, or a traumatic experience. Like, this is literally no human on the planet. So whenever we're looking at those micronutrient panels, when I'm looking at them, I'm really taking into consideration, okay, the panel is telling me they have these deficiencies and these borderline deficiencies, but are these borderline deficiencies really deficiencies for this person based on their genetic panel, their health history, their symptoms that they're coming to me with now? We kind of have to piece this together. It's not black and white. So basically the takeaway from this that I want for people to take away from this is that you are not a slave to your genetics. Like I said, it only accounts for about 10% of your overall genetic expression. Of course, there are people that are born with severe, genetic mutations. They're missing a chromosome. They're missing this, that, and the other that like really throws them into a whole different category. I'm not talking about those types of genetic issues. I'm talking about our standard, everyday, every single person on the planet walking around has these genetic mutations, and they're saying, oh, I'm bound to get diabetes because everyone in my family has diabetes. No, that's a lifestyle condition. that we need to address through lifestyle. And then that gene that, is kind of wonky with how your body processes insulin and blood sugar and things like that, it'll go back to bed. It won't bother you anymore. So we just really need to address those lifestyle things. Look at the blueprint, look at what's going on in the body, look at the health history, what's going on right now, and put together that puzzle and really just be a detective instead of just being like, oh, well, this is just the way it is. So I really invite people to take back control over their health. I help people to do this every single day. If you would like to be one of those people, then you can reach out to me for your free consultation. Just shoot me an email at thole.erin@gmail.com. You can go to my website, which is my name, ErinThole.com, and learn more about what I do, how I practice, all that good stuff. And I'd be happy to help you navigate what is going on with your health. I hope you found this helpful.